Part 2 of Anti-Gravity. Chapter 4. Awkward Moments. Suddenly, the svelte, dark-haired, emerald-eyed woman began to awaken. "Julian, what are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," Julian began, placing his hand behind his head and laughing nervously. He had begun to sweat quite profusely, as he often did as if there were a rather attractive woman that he happened to be fond of speaking to him. "Try me," she said, unamused and crossing her arms defiantly. Julian began to tell her what had been occurring. Fortunately, she seemed to be understanding. She was the type of woman who believed that there were elements that could be quantified, and then came the unknown, which humankind had ridiculous ways of defining. This definitely fell into the metaphysical and supernatural file. "So, these soldats, as they are calling themselves, somehow materialized me into your house?" "I find it all very illogical," Catherine stated, chuckling, adjusting her black-rimmed but chic glasses. "Apparently so, but I have no idea why they wanted to do that. All I have been doing is taking care of their object. It's only been a few days, and all of these unusual events have been taking place," Julian responded. "Don't worry. I'm sure everything will start falling into place. I know this is a bit impertinent and perhaps a little forward of me to ask, but would you like to grab a bite to eat later?" Catherine asked sweetly. Julian's Adam's apple felt hard in his throat, and he swallowed. He was actually getting asked out on a date. Sure, I'd be honored. I've wanted to ask you for the longest time, but, Julian stammered. Catherine delicately put her finger to his lips and giggled girlishly. "Stop right there. Don't ruin the moment with excessive babble," she said. I'll be here at my house 6 p.m. tomorrow. Don't be late," she said, thanking him for the ride before she left. "Should I come as I am?" Julian questioned. "Of course. Don't change that. You look terrific," Catherine complimented. With a huge grin, she left. Julian Rhett, the man that had no time for love, suddenly found himself blushing, and his body crackled electrically. "This is what love feels like?" he asked himself. Again he turned his eyes skyward and smiled incandescently. "Thank you, soldats," he mused. Chapter 5. Our work here is done. Julian's date with Catherine went successfully, and she actually asked to see him again sometime. She realized that he was busy in research and working at the bank just to keep himself alive in this dog-eat-dog culture, but he was more than willing to go out with her again. She had a magnificent sense of humor, and her wit divine. He didn't know why he hadn't noticed it earlier. The two seemed to be equally matched. For once, the notion of ending bachelorhood entered his mind, and he thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad to live a life with someone of like mind. Of course, this would take time, and he was willing to wait for the right moment to let Catherine know his true intent, when he was fully ready and willing to make a commitment. Right now, he was simply getting to know her better. When Julian returned home, the handkerchief no longer looked like it was hiding something. Instead, a note remained. "Our work here is done. Graciously we remain, the soldats," it read. He had wondered He had wondered what the soldats actually looked like, and for one moment his mind was opened. They didn't look any different from human beings, except they were taller, their heads were a bit flatter, and they had slits in their necks. They were amphibious creatures, but apparently their planet allowed such a climate for them to survive in it without having to worry about being on or off land too long. He had no idea how he had experienced the images he did, but with a blink of his eyes, that was the end of his conversation with them. "I suppose this is the last I shall see of them," he thought. Just then another cursive note materialized on his desk. "You have done us a great service, and if we are ever in need of keeping something safe, we will simply drop it off here, at Earth. But no fretting. This time we will allow ample warming. Humbly, the soldats." He laughed. It was nice they were being so courteous of his feelings. Epilogue. Over time, Julian and Catherine began to see each other more and more often until they declared themselves an official couple. They were very much in love and were considering marriage for a later date. Fortunately, the soldats hadn't said any unfamiliar objects, but they kept Julian updated with their impeccably written cursive notes that would appear mostly when he was away or on a job. In about 3 to 4 years, Julian and Catherine had finally gotten married after many months of getting to know each other better and dating each other. To think they had begun merely as friends, and their mutual respect and like for one another had blossomed into something beautiful. As for the soldats, they had sent him other items to watch over for unspecified reasons, mainly for caretaking, and sent them a congratulatory note on their baby girl. Baby girl? How do they even know that? Catherine asked out of the blue one day. They're telepathic. I'm not sure how they hear our thoughts, but apparently they can hear a little girl too, Julian said warmly. He had always wanted to become a father, and wonder of wonders, his prayer had been answered. They decided to name the little girl to come Stella, since she had literally come from the stars to be part of their family. The Rhett family indeed had been blessed. Their lives would transform once Stella came into the world, but for the precious moments they had together now, the couple enjoyed the changes to come and the challenges and delights they would face in the many years ahead. The end.